Afternoon, everybody. Uh, Thank you for joining us at the Dome. We have two talks. We're going to have Eric talking right now, and I'll be introducing myself right after. And then 5 minutes before 3, we'll take a break, and then we'll all move to the Waterhouse to um, seal the conference, basically. Eric is here with us from Onyx. I'll let him introduce himself. He's going to talk about contextual voice communications, a mobile-first approach. So I'll just let him do his magic.
Okay. Thank you all for coming. I know the session after lunch is a little harsh. Difficult. I'm glad I got at least a few bodies in the tent. It looks different here in the Dome. It's a little loud. Okay. To be fair, very clear, this is not a technical talk. I'm here to talk philosophical and a little bit of history about what we can do as a community, or the two communities, to take the world forward. And I know at least Evan's going to be very interested to hear this because they're trying to take the world forward in a similar way, just we're going left, they're going right kind of ways to get there. Okay. Audience participation is encouraged, you asked. Okay? There will be questions to the audience. Good answers or good questions get you chocolate. So Mr. Duffett, borrowing the idea from us earlier, he bought 3 different bags. I bought the variety pack. Not yet. What, you think that's a good question? Whoop. Almost. Yeah, those don't fly so good. Okay. A little bit about me, since I've known Or for a long time, but he's a little hesitant to talk about me. I'm a husband, father, grandfather. I won't bore you with pictures unless you really ask. I actually pulled that on one Astrocon where I got up and no pictures. Okay, just one. Okay. For the last 9 years, I've been doing telecom VoIP fraud prevention, talking about that predominantly. And as with all of my talks, there will be at least one hacking example in this one. Okay. I advise various startups, get involved with all sorts of technologies, and for those of you who don't know, I have a science fiction book out. Okay, I actually brought copies if people want to talk to me about it. So let's go with the very basic question. Ignoring the obvious philosophical question of why are we here, it's how did we get here to this particular topic, to this particular kind of a conference? So let's go back in a little time. Question, when was the facsimile machine invented? You can't answer, you know. What? 1940s. Anybody want another guess? What? 1843. You were 100 years off. But Evan was closer, so. I seem to be listing slightly to the left. Okay. People tend to think of the technologies that we use and the concepts as being something that is all new. The fax was invented in the 1883. But it never went anywhere because nobody had anywhere to send something that was further than they could walk in a half an hour. Because everybody they knew lived within a 10-mile radius. Okay? The first telephone call is attributed to Alexander Graham Bell. He didn't actually invent the telephone. There's a whole patent dispute and lawsuits and things that went with that. The original patent got filed at 9:30 in the morning. Bell's got filed, the first one was filed as a intention to file with the patent office at 9:30. Bell's got filed at 11:30 as a formal patent. The other one was only registered at 1:30, so Bell got the actual patent because they took that long to actually run the paperwork. Okay, as I said, first communication hack was in 1901. Marconi was set up not too far from here to show the Royal Navy this wonderful secure communication channel for ship-to-shore communications. So instead of using flags, they were going to use radio waves in a way that would give them the ability to do this. Another inventor here, in this case, I never get his name right, Maskelyne, was really pissed off. He was a magician, was really pissed off with Marconi. And just before Marconi's was scheduled to start at 11 o'clock, at 10:59, Maskelyne started sending out Morse code for rats, 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 and then went on with Shakespeare and other things, completely blowing the secure, nobody can hack it communications. So these are not new things. People are doing the same hacks from the 1950s, went from POTS lines and carrier trunks to VoIP to WebRTC. The techniques haven't changed, the technology has. So it's up to all of us to make sure we're paying attention to that and make it right. Okay? First call center, again, not too far from here, 1965. The Birmingham Press and Mail was using it as a way to sell newspapers. Okay? Then, okay, I know what that click was. The first voice over IP application was released in 1991. Okay? And it was a lovely concept. Nobody knew what to do with it. Okay? From there, we went on to MTalk, which was the first Linux release of a software. Vocaltech puts out their first telephone in 1995. 97, Level 3 starts putting out what they called a soft switch. Okay? By now, soft switch has gone on even further from soft PBX to cloud PBX and other technologies. Then we get over to 1999. How many of you know Mark Spencer personally? Only two? Wow. Okay. Most of you would probably actually recognize him if you don't know him personally. So Mark went out and, before creating Digium, went out and created a software package. Why the heck am I spending hundreds of thousands on a PBX when all it is effectively a computer? So he went and developed the code and wrote it and started designing the boards that somebody else went and started building to allow voice over IP out of a standard computer. Became the PBX, which became Digium, which now became Sangoma. Okay? A little bit over a decade ago, Twilio put out what is now being recognized as the first generation CPaaS, Communications Platform as a Service. And they took this really novel idea, give you the ability to put into a mobile device a piece of software that would trigger the dialer from inside the application and allow you to make phone calls from an app directly instead of having to leave it and dial the number manually. And then they've built on with many services. They're a huge company now. Last I heard, it's like a $10 billion industry that they've spawned because of this. Okay? 2011, we had the rise of WebRTC and the beginning of concepts. Okay? So once you get the technology announced as a theory, WebRTC came out. They started putting it into Chrome browsers and other things. And then 3 years later, Genband comes out with Candy, which was the first WebRTC CPaaS-based solution. So they became the second generation CPaaS. Now, part of the problem with WebRTC as a CPaaS is when you're going from a browser into a call center, you need hardware at the other end to translate this into the phone system, which tended to get very expensive to connect it into the various technologies, the CRMs and stuff. So a lot of companies didn't do it. They just didn't know how to take it. What Twilio did, it came in as a regular phone call, no problem. That works the way I've always used, no changes. Same technology that they used from the 1980s, 1990s, all they did was they added mobile to it. Once you got Candy, they started to try and add WebRTC, taking it from the browser. It didn't take off very well. Okay, and as we heard yesterday in the demo, WebRTC is just beginning to get better. There's actually a talk on the hard bits where he was talking about, Jared was talking about ICE and all of the things that you need to make all of this work. And the reality is we're just getting to the point where the browsers are being consistent enough that you don't have to write special solutions for each browser because they're all kind of normalizing the technology inside the browser. So you have a basic starting point to work with. And this is great. Okay? For 3.5, 4 years ago, we started Cloud Onyx to say, wait, you've got all of these wonderful things at the mobile browser level, the mobile application level, you have the web browser level. Let's start combining them back together and make it easy. So this is kind of the philosophy where we built the company. But to take this back into a simple concept, user behavior and expectations have changed. What people are expecting out of an app, out of a service, is different. It used to be people would look up in a phone book when they wanted a business. How many of you actually own a phone book today? Physical paper book. Okay, let me phrase it differently. How many of you own a physical paper phone book that isn't being used to raise your monitor up 3 inches? Okay? This is how far that technology has come. So they expect different. So they go to a mobile app, they go to a website, and they want to accomplish everything there, inside the app where possible, inside the website where they don't have to talk to a person on 90% of the technology. Whatever the people go for, they want to be able to solve easy without needing to call a person. The problem is that last percentage bit of how do I make this work? How do I actually do it when I need to go to a point where the AI chatbot doesn't answer or the website doesn't answer? And this is where things get a little complicated today. Okay? So enterprises are still using call centers. People sitting in a large room with phones answering or making calls, sitting in front of a screen. I'm coming from a mobile app or a chatbot. How do I get to that person? What are the interconnects? These are complicated systems, and people need to understand how to integrate them, what to do. Okay? And there are different ways of doing it. Okay? So currently the basic technology, as I said, generation 1, is you, come over here. You start off with a call from a mobile app or a website. It goes out to a native dialer, goes out to a cell tower, goes through one or more carriers to eventually get into the call center. What happens when you do this is you lose context. Okay? So, 1 second, why is it not playing? It's on mute. Okay. It's supposed to be playing that.
To speak with a representative, please say your entire
Sorry?
account number now.
I had to include Allison. It just didn't feel right not having her here this year. Okay? This is an actual comic strip that came out in January called The Boy
You
Who-
said 67N-G-Q9A-113-5A-C1A-Z13-87K-L64-1-PX2SXA. Is this correct?
Okay. That's the last of the audio for this presentation, so you can turn off the computer mic. How many of you have actually gone out to a bank or an insurance company, and this is what you get started with? The first thing, okay, so the example that I use is a bank. You go out to a bank, and the first thing that happens is you call in, you dial, and you get hit with an IVR, okay? IVRs have their places. I'm not going to say no, and Allison has been doing wonderful things with helping people learn how to do it. But the first thing you do, and this was originally designed for the States, you dial into a bank or an insurance company, and it's press 1 for English. Press whatever number you want for the department you want. Type in your account number. Verify your account number. Then they give you to a person, and then the first thing they do is they ask you, what is your account number? Prove to me that you really are the person I'm supposed to be giving service to. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't help you, I need to transfer you. And then you get transferred to somebody, and you do it all over again. When you're dealing with a regular telephone call, and all they know about you is your caller ID, this is a given mandatory thing. You look at your mobile app today, you go, oh, wait, bank app says, I've got a problem with transaction number 17. I don't recognize this one, it looks funny. Let me call the bank. What's the first thing you do when you see that in your app today? Anybody? Nobody wants chocolate. Okay? First thing you do when you see that in an app or on your website today is you pick up the phone and you have to dial. Click to call whatever you're dialing, an 800 number, you're dialing it, and then you get this process. Automatically it's going back. Okay, 1 second. Yeah, that one. So what do you get? You automatically get to the, what is your account number? How can I help you? Let me transfer you. You automatically get that. You can't get away from it because they don't know who you are. You're not authenticated. So you come through the call, okay? Now imagine if every time you call the representative through your mobile app, through the website where you are logged in, and they know who is calling, where you're calling from if that's appropriate, and why you're calling, even before they connected. Okay, you're all technical people. How many of you ever had problems with your internet provider or your cable provider? You were first. Okay? Now imagine if you go to the app or the website and click tech support. You're already logged in. Before they even answer the phone, they're able to trigger a hardware test against your device because they know who you are, your account number. They go, oh yeah, I see your device isn't working. Let me send out a technician with a new box for you first thing tomorrow. Before you even tell them who you are, they already know who's calling, why you're calling because you came from the tech support or I need help page, and they're able to trigger the test even before the agent answers the phone because it only takes a couple of seconds to do that. So imagine if we could do this for all different technologies. So here we use the example again, coming back to the bank. You click on it, and the first thing that they come up with, the information comes from the app. In the app, you are authenticated. It knows your account number. It knows which page you're on, and potentially you can go in, and I don't have it, I click on this item, click the call here, and they go, ah, this is the one you're calling about. They automatically know. So they know who you are because you're authenticated. They know why you're calling. Everything is done, and they've got that information before you have to spend 5 minutes explaining it. You don't need the IVR because you're coming from a particular location. The context of the call is carried through. So all of us are having a conversation. You see context when you talk face-to-face to somebody. How they're moving, how they're sitting, how they're acting. All of these things are context that we can participate. Are they listening? Why are they talking? What do they mean? Do they understand? When we do phone calls, we lose that. Because a regular phone call is just caller ID. Possibly a few other details, but in the most part, nothing else. So how can we, as a community, improve the way things work? Okay, what can we do to improve things? How can we add context? Okay, so to give an example, and I'm borrowing this one actually from Nir. Nir had a case where at 11 o'clock at night, his wife had gone out with some friends to go to the mall, gets a call at 11:30 at night from his wife. The car just suddenly died in the middle of the road and there's a smell of gasoline, or petrol if you're British. What do I do? So his first comment was, turn off the car and get out. Okay, you don't want to be in a car that smells of gasoline. That's kind of logic. And this is a woman who runs the operations for a 1,000-person enterprise. Intelligent, capable woman. And is suddenly completely incapable of figuring some of this out because she's so stressed out. So he's like, okay, now call the insurance company so they can come and send the tow truck. She's like, no, I can't do that. So Nir gets a babysitter, drives over with her car, she takes the car home, and he waits for the insurance company for them to send a tow truck. And he spent a lot of time thinking, why is this relevant? Why am I doing this? Why couldn't she make the call? At which point it dawned on him. In these situations, you are stressed, you don't have full control, and you're really nervous. And the last thing you want is to get to that stupid IVR. Okay? Midnight, the last thing you want when you're stressed out is to get somebody to go, why are you calling? What is your account number? It's like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a way to bring the context into it. So then we started working on that and built it. And then we started thinking, wait, if I'm going to build an app or an SDK that can go into a mobile app for an insurance company, what else can I tell it? The app knows your location. The app knows your policy number. The app potentially has connection to the Bluetooth inside the car to the car's brain, and they could actually extract data. Is the car drivable? What condition it is? What was before that? If you're in an accident, you can actually take a photograph of the car, of the other person's license, of the spot where the stop sign is supposed to be but isn't there, and it all goes through immediately into the account, so you don't need to send out a claims adjuster. So it would take a 2-week process under the current method, can be done in 5 minutes standing there very calmly, very politely. And we started thinking about this and looking at it, it was like, okay, this is the way the world should be going. We should be sharing data. It's in the app. The app knows all sorts of shit about you. Sometimes too much, okay? But if the app knows it, why isn't it handing it off? Why am I losing it the minute I dial the 1-800 number? Or 0800 number here, okay? So the question is, what can we do? How am I doing on time? I can't see the 20 minutes. Wow, I've got another 20 minutes? Okay, so we're going to turn this into a discussion in a second. So I'll skip on this for a second. Yes, I'll end up throwing out more chocolate. So the idea, and this is part of what yesterday's hackathon was about, and we'll talk about that a little bit in the closing ceremony. What can people do when you start combining these technologies, making things more relevant, more useful? How do you take context, WebRTC, VoIP, mobile apps, websites, how do you combine all this together in a way to make people's lives better? better tools, better apps that weren't possible 2 years ago, a year ago when the technology didn't come together. Any ideas? Suggestions? Yes, you can answer, Evan. I'm sure you've got ideas in your head. What? How? 1 second. Can we have the hand mic?
Yeah. Okay, great. So, really happy for this talk because this is actually part of my life at this point. We do a lot of call centers. We are investing heavily into context-aware communications. That's what we are calling it. And yeah, we totally share your vision of call centers and even end users, not just call centers, needing more context on why people are calling, but actually big service like insurance companies need that a lot. And you can sort of do that with regular telephony plus API calls, but so you can actually combine both from the endpoint perspective, but you need to do a lot of work on the contact center platform as well. From my perspective, I actually don't see. I think we needed something like more like a protocol, you know, something like that, because otherwise you just get custom projects every time, you know. So this app and that platform, target platform, and this form of communication, etc. So I think if we are going to have very good context-aware communications, something like a protocol should arise to address that between companies that actually develop communications that way.
Okay. You brought up 2 different points there, and I'm going to come back to that. The first one, yes, with the current technology, with standard calls, you can rebind everything back, which, as you say, it's a lot of work to get the identification at the call start and rebind it back at the call center.
Yep.
So this is one of the big challenges that have been happening. So people have been trying to do this. It's difficult. So yes, this is a hard part. We do it slightly differently, but I won't go into how we... Okay. But the other part is the protocol concept is a little hard because what to define and how to define it across vendors. I mean, to be very honest, a lot of companies, and I know Evan will agree with me, and I keep pointing to him because nominally we're competing in the same space, kind of friendly at the moment. But TWIML has become kind of the de facto standard that everybody's trying to map to because they're the elephant in the room that everybody knows originally. It's a limited protocol set. It's the one that you can use for like 80% of what you want across the board, but it doesn't cover everything because they were never designed it to. Yeah. Okay, so getting multi-vendor interaction and interfaces for that, you're probably several years out from, because right now, I don't know, there's more than 100 different CPaaS or equivalent companies in the US alone right now. It's probably closer to like 200 around the world of companies that are doing various things on API base. And the only thing that any of us have in common is that we've got a Twilio compatibility module, okay? But getting different companies to interact right now is only gonna happen when the market consolidates significantly.
I think WebRTC can actually address that in the future, like expanding WebRTC.
Okay, I'll just respond to that. It's possible that WebRTC, yes, could add to that. They're still developing it, as we saw yesterday in the Fantastical demo, where they're now putting out new audio and AV codecs and stuff. So this kind of thing is possible. The question of how is it going to work? Are there going to be enough companies willing to work together to create a standard and put it together? Like I said, I see it happening, but I don't see it happening until there's a bit more consolidation. You look at Cisco buying Tropo. The first thing they did was they threw away half of the feature set of Tropo just so it would work with what they're doing. It kind of killed a lot of it. There's a lot of companies that have gone out there, have been created. Plivo is gone. Okay, they disappeared back in November. So there's a large number of companies that are trying to do this from different ways. Other than the fact that Twilio was first, therefore has the predominant share, who has the best kind of solutions is yet to be determined. And as there's kind of a consolidation on technology, on concept, then there'll start being more interop because there'll be more need for it. But right now, most of the systems are very much closed garden. Okay, so you work at a Twilio silo, they don't want you to work with anybody else. You literally have to rip them out and move to somebody else completely. Okay, and it's a design concept as part of their business model. It's not a technical requirement, it's a business concept. And for the next several years, that's going to be a problem. So yeah, there are new tools, there are better ways of doing it, but the question of how. Okay. But that is definitely worth.
Well, we made the kind of strapline of connection telecom better context, speed, and accuracy. So one of the ways we tried to do something about context is in our multi-channel contact center platform, which is WebRTC and chat and whatnot. We put this idea of a context. So a call, a chat that comes in has a context that can come. It's a combination of data that comes. Either if it's a live chat integration on a website, the website people can put context in. The user can provide context, which we would describe as unauthenticated context. Mm-hmm. Then call-outs can collect additional context. Chatbots might add context, and all of this stuff is visible to the agent and can drive the agent behavior and bring up, scripts and whatnot along the side and so on. So the idea, because it's exactly your problem, right? You're on a website, you're looking at the demo we do, we've got a silly little website with fidget spinners on it, and you can open one up and you can click and talk, and you can just say to the agent, can I get it in green? And the agent can tell exactly what you're talking about, which is it's not going to change the world, but I mean, it's just lame that you didn't have that before, exactly what you say. Yeah.
So if I want to send money to someone, I generally do it with my mobile phone app from my bank, because I need to scan my fingerprint and then I can transfer money without any headaches. But if I go to the website, I need to enter the password, I need to do a secure question, then I'm in, then I choose the person I want to send money to, then I need to get a little calculator device, put my card in, follow the steps, confirm it all. It takes about 4 times as long. And the reason is because they trust me, because it's my phone and it's my fingerprint. I'm more likely to be me, if you know what I mean. So yes. if we generally have 2 major flavors of phones, iOS and Android. So if these companies are building apps for their particular service, implement WebRTC connectivity or what have you through the app, and they implement the context sensitive features in the app, and people are aware that they can get through quicker through that, then it becomes almost, the more companies that do this, the more people realize that there's probably a quicker way of dealing with all this if they just use the app. So surely it's more about everyone having an awareness that, there are ways to make things better, and the more it becomes cultural, then it becomes commonplace.
Yes, as more people start experiencing it, they start expecting it, so then it'll become more common, is very true. But again, the difference between sending data from the app versus the website is one problem. Binding in the voice, because this is a communication voice-oriented kind of a conference, how do you add that in? Okay, because what you've just described is you have the device, you've now authenticated to the device at the beginning when you created your account, you've now authenticated to the device that you can unlock it, fingerprint, facial recognition, whatever it uses, code, to get into the app. So you're now 2-factor authenticated, what you have, what you know, or what you are, at which point you can go to the other end and talk to somebody, and people don't like phishing attacks on banks. Okay? Happen all the time. And what we found, and or knows this all too well because we've talked security stuff in the past, people will call into a bank in the call center and they know 2 details about you, and then manage to get 1 more detail out of you from the bank, call back 20 minutes later, get a different agent, now know 3 details about you, and after they've got 4 or 5 details, they can then wire money. Okay? And the whole point is, how many of you receive phone calls from your credit card company saying, or somebody claiming to your credit card company saying, there's a fraudulent act on your account, please tell me your account number to confirm that it's really you. How do you know it's really the bank? Phone numbers can be spoofed.
Yeah.
So the whole concept of how you do this becomes a problem.
But that's, again, very often, and this is a trick that a lot of these financial institutions do, they'll cut your call off. And then they'll call you back and say, oh, I apologize, we lost a call for a second. But they do it so they can swap it round. So then they're calling you. And if the context is the same, if you say, oh, I never called you, they know it wasn't you in the first place. But if you carry on the conversation, then you know that, there's another level of authentication there.
But that's them. That's you calling them and them calling you back to authenticate. When they're calling you in the first place, how do you know that it's really American Express saying, hey, I saw a charge on your account on India, but I see that you're charging in England. How do I know that that's a fraudulent account? They ask you to give the last 4 digits or the middle 4 digits. And once you realize that they're not asking for the first few digits, they know that that's the bank.
Yeah.
The last few digits, they know they want the middle part because that's the part that's hard to get.
Yeah.
Maybe it's old hat for the Europeans, but my bank's integrated their banking app into their telephony environment. So if the bank phones you, they will authenticate themselves to you and vice versa by pushing a authentication challenge to the app that you must respond to.
That's perfect. Okay, so either enabling something like that or actually having the call directly into the app where the app is the one that is answering. So it's the Amex app or the Bank of England app that pops up and says you have a call. Then you're authenticated because both ends know who they're talking to.
Yeah. Another thing is as well, specifically in the UK, I don't know about elsewhere, but most financial institutions will say that they'll never call you unsolicited. So you can tell if they're the actual people because you're phoning them.
I agree with that, except the number of people who fall for the IRS scam every year around tax time that we need you to give us your credit card number so we can process your payment, or your bank number so we can send you the money that you're entitled to, or you owe us money so you need to pay. There are tens of thousands of people who get nailed with that same thing every year, regardless of how many ad campaigns, newspaper articles, or whatever else they say. The IRS will not call you. Everything we do will be done by the U.S. Post. Okay, so it's a problem. I'll let you give that back before I toss this at you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to be down to 8 minutes. Okay, so as I put up on the screen a little while ago, Cloud Onyx has decided we come from the developer community, we come from the entrepreneur and startup community, so literally today we are officially announcing a new process called our Cloud Onyx Greenhouse. So we come from here, we're trying to help with startups who are doing things, and even if this isn't for you guys, if you know somebody, have them contact me. Hello, thank you. So it's a package designed to enable mobile SDK to SDK communication. We didn't actually talk the case. What do you do with somebody like Uber where you need a driver to talk to a passenger, or the other way around and you don't want to give real phone numbers? You don't want to have real phone calls. These kinds of technologies enable that if you are doing it, because right now everything is a 2-call leg, twice the expense. That's why Uber left Twilio as their primary exclusive vendor back in 2017. Now they've got several others. Okay, so the idea is creating startups, creating technologies for the people who aren't in this room, or possibly the ones who are, who really don't want to spend their time doing the business on recreating the wheel on an SDK or a platform to enable the technologies. So what we've done is we've put together a package to make this easy for them. Comes with access to our services, the SDKs, unlimited IP to IP calling, slightly more limited IP to phone calling. Okay, credit's good for 24 months so people can actually get in and learn and use the service and scale up their business. And we're targeting startups, entrepreneurs. You don't have to copy this. I'll give you a copy of the hard copy afterwards if you want. The idea is make this possible for startups or entrepreneurs or students who are trying to build things. So if you know people who are looking to do this or trying to do this, very interested in trying to make this happen, because we want to get these kinds of tools, these kinds of things out to people's hands so they can build. So this is pretty much the end of my talk. Any questions? Or have we covered everything already? Okay.
So I'm not generally a telco person. There are a lot of holes. I'm seeing a lot of new things while I'm at this conference, and I feel like I kind of need visuals to better understand specifically what you're providing. So is there anywhere I can go and see that at demos and what have you?
You can get a free account off our website.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take 2 seconds. Well, what do we have on the clock? Oh, 5 minutes. Plenty of time. So we've had customers do funky things. And hopefully it'll work. I hate live demos. So I've got 3 apps on my phone that customers have built. The first one, which is actually out on Play and iOS and iTunes. They updated it and it's crashing now. Never mind. They've created a Docker phone inside your phone. So the business case for them is you go bring your own device to an enterprise. I've got the latest and greatest iPhone or whatever else. I don't want to get a company phone that's crap.
Yeah.
So you put in this app. The company gives you a phone number and secure access to the network and the Google accounts and all of the things that is completely isolated from the regular phone. So you have 2 phone numbers on the app, on the phone at the same time, a work number and a home number completely isolated. Mm-hmm. Our SDK provides all of the voice and communications, SMS technology on the back end of that. So that's one. Another one, Globy, which is going on. They are a mobile app for roamers out of Southeast Asia, where you can get a software package out of whichever country you want to get a phone number there and do termination back and forth to your home country.
Right.
Okay, and they literally have a whole thing where you can pull down the options of which contract you want from which carrier. And the third one, which is still coming up, is called Caller, is designed by somebody, their CEO got tired of having to swap SIM cards every time he would travel. You get 6 or 7 SIM cards and you go crazy with it. So the idea is you put in the SIM card, it registers, does a call forward into the app, and then through our cloud, it's enabling people to actually make calls to or from that phone number through us out over the phone number to wherever they want. So you can choose which phone number am I using to make the call so it doesn't cost me. Mm-hmm. Okay, or I'm calling a particular customer and the customer's in France, so I want to use my French SIM card. Mm-hmm. And you're still paying for the SIM and you're still paying for the service, but you're doing it all through one app.
Right.
And it's a dialer. So these are some of the things people are doing. Okay. I've got one company out of India that's they're a Twilio competitor, and they're taking their entire network and moving it over to us because they had 6 different systems. They're now combining it into one onto one platform.
Yeah.
So the idea is what kinds of services, what kinds of features. So we've got the SDK, Android, iOS, and the web one will be coming out in a couple weeks, enables you to put out these services app to app, app to call center.
Right.
Okay. So if you look at the driver app, Uber, Domino's, any of these courier services where you want the driver and the customer to be able to talk, but only for a duration, this is something that we enable over the data network. So there are a bunch of things, and I don't want to get too salesy on it, but there are a whole bunch of features and things, which is kind of what yesterday's hackathon was, where it was a combination of 3 companies. So we used SIM with phone numbers, we used Telco Bridges SBC, and then we used the Cloud Onyx platform, and they had to go through escape room style. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, if you get to this point, you get a code that you then use to get to this point that you use to get to here. And this is what they did, and then there'll be an extension of this. Okay, now that you've built the underlying architecture, now go build a service, and you got until September 6th to present it.
Right.
So we're kind of looking at ways to encourage people to think outside of their little boxes. Okay. And Or says, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. We have 5 minutes.